those sort of tough times makes us pick our clients now. Like we're actually auditing our clients, like our client audits us. We're going, hey, can you afford this? Like, where's this money coming from? Because they're asking us for all the information on us. I think it's only fair to ask them the information.
What is success to you?
I think it was a learn to love it experience.
And there's always pitfalls that you can fall in, but then you've got no one else to blame but yourself.
Number one thing if you're struggling is to catch other people about it.
What's up, guys? I've got something really, really exciting for you today. We are giving away an exclusive 2-night stay at Aboto's iconic Cadrona cabin. This is a very unique offer as bookings are by invitation only, so listen up closely. This luxurious getaway is valued at $1,200, and to make it even better, we're going to throw in a $200 dinner voucher at the legendary Cadrona Hotel right next door. How awesome is that? Now, this is all you have to do to enter the competition. Just listen to the podcast, and in the first 3 weeks of October, you will find one secret phrase within each of those episodes. Each phrase you find gives you a chance to win, so you can enter up to 3 times, once per episode, to give you the best opportunity to win. Does that all make sense? So 3 episodes, 3 phrases, and 3 chances for you to win that awesome prize. So what do you do with the phrases after you find them? You simply go to aboto.co.nz/betterbuilder and you submit them there. You also need to follow Better Builder and Aboto on Instagram to be eligible, so remember to go do that as well. Now, flights aren't included, but trust me, it's going to be worth the trip. Full terms and conditions are also on the website, so make sure you go check that out. This will be an amazing experience for you and your lucky guests, so good luck. P.S. One of the phrases will be in this week's episode. Nic Patterson, thanks for coming on the podcast.
No worries.
Yeah, we've been talking a little bit offline, which is kind of cool, about what's happening in the market and where the industry is going in New Zealand and Australia as well. So yeah, we'll kind of get to all of that. But first, I want to just hear a little bit about your upbringing, like you're a Wellington boy. Did you grow up there in Wellington as well, or did you guys move there?
Yeah, born and bred in Lower Hutt. Went to high school at Hutt Valley High School. Finished up in 2002, 2003, and
Yep.
Moved down south to Wanaka to snowboard, and did a snowboard instructor course.
Pretty cool. So what kind of guy were you? Like, we talked a little bit before around you have some like interesting friends, successful friends. You guys have kind of like grown up together, which is kind of cool. But who were you like as a young boy? Like, who was Nic in high school?
I was really into my rugby. Loved playing rugby. Played ever since I was sort of like 5 years old and right through school. So I was only at school to really eat my lunch and play for the first 15. And then on the side I had after school jobs. I was running sort of 2 or 3 jobs at a time, working at placemakers, delivering fish and chips and picking up range balls at the golf course. So you're doing that from like 14.
Right, so from a young age, you were already keen on making a bit of dough, eh?
Yeah, and then sort of in the school holidays, helping out the old man, installing insulation and digging holes and that sort of stuff.
So you pretty much grew up on the construction side as well?
Yeah, the old man being a builder.
Right. What position did you play?
Hooker.
I was just about to say that. I was just like, hooker, but because we get a bit older now and our bodies change. I don't know if you were like, maybe you were skinnier, maybe you could have been a halfback or something like that.
Fiery little redhead.
Yeah.
Hooker.
Hooker's a fun position though, eh?
Very fun.
Apart from the scrum sometimes, it's a bit, can get you a bit lightheaded, but everything else is pretty fun because you can get around the park a little bit.
Yeah. I think you're a winger at times when you're nowhere near it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. My cousin was actually a hooker for the Springboks. I'm from South Africa.
Oh, nice.
So, shout out to him. So hooker is definitely a good one. I was in the back line. I was number 12, 13.
I always wanted to be there, but never could make it.
Yeah. I was also got smaller as everyone grew. I just stayed the same size. Like I was this big when I was like about 12.
Oh, how good.
And then it was really good. I was like really fast and everything. And then everyone just sort of caught up and went beyond me. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm a small guy now after a while. But when you're small guys, you have to try a lot harder, you know?
You do, yeah.
Yeah, you have to be a lot more ruthless. So, okay, cool. So you were into rugby. You kind of, you went down to Wanaka, did a bit of snowboarding there. So tell me, what was the transition? So your dad owned a construction company?
Yeah, so Dad started BK Patterson Builders in 1989. So throughout school, never really planned on being a builder. I always thought I was going to do something else, maybe architecture or snowboarding, but wasn't quite good enough. So then did a snowboard instructor course and avalanche safety 1, and then went to America and sort of got sick of having no money. Came home, did some timber flooring, and the boss ran out of work, and Dad just goes, "Oh, come work for me." So ended up working for Dad, and then sort of started my apprenticeship through him, learning the hard way and the fun way.
What was that like? Like, were you? It sounds like you were. I don't know if you were, but were you reluctant to kind of work for your dad? Like, because as a young man, you want to make your own path, right?
You do, yeah.
And you just kind of like reluctant to kind of just go work for your dad for a while.
Yeah, I was. And you sort of don't want everyone thinking that you've been gifted everything on a plate and whatnot.
Yep.
So, no, it was actually like the funnest apprenticeship it could do. It was hard at times, but he is so much fun on site. It was just a real good environment.
So how big was the team then? When
so
you
the team was, he got up to 8 guys at one stage, but we had sort of 3 or 4 at that time, and then he started employing some of my mates, which made it even more fun on site.
That's awesome.
We were specialising in sort of new builds, and we'd sort of start off, manage the earthworks and everything, and it's always been full contract builds and renovations,
Cool.
and then fit outs as well.
Right. Okay. And then so then you kind of got your ticket there, and then started working your way up. And then how long did it take? Because obviously the team was a lot more smaller then than it is now. Yeah. But how long did it take before you were kind of like, did you approach your dad being like, let me take this thing over, or did he approach you, or what was that sort of process like? Because that could be a little bit touchy sometimes, the dad-son relationship and who's in charge, and and when are you going to take it over, and the dad letting go of the reins, and then a lot of builders are in those scenarios, right? So
Yeah.
how did that work?
He was probably the best scenario you could ever have. Like, he was sort of, the whole way through, he was always calling me boss when I wasn't. But I just sort of had a passion for building, and I wanted to also make it my career then and also make some money along the way. So we sort of started introducing systems that could increase profit. We sort of did I watched how a plumber ran their sort of company, and when they did like a stock take on their van, and we introduced these job books on each job, and we were charging out every single thing instead of carrying product over from one job to the other and going, oh, that product was free on that job. This new job, that product's free from that job. So we started charging like leftover quoted gear.
Yep.
And that sort of helped with our profit margins going forward. And then we looked at other avenues, like I was saying before, we bought a few tipper trucks, and we would use them for rubbish instead of getting skip bins, and then on a charge up job, the boys getting charged out, the trucks getting charged out, and then you're charging the same price as a skip, so you might have $300 profit on a truck alone when you go in the tip.
So that's definitely recommended in terms of, if you can charge the same jobs getting charged 3 times, you can clip the ticket 3 times, right?
Yeah, and keeping stuff in-house as well, so you can keep the flow going on the job. You're not sort of waiting for that next sub-trade. And that's where it sort of came along the way, where we were like, let's buy a digger. Let's buy some earth moving gear so we can manage that process right from the start, get it more accurate, and then keep the flow of the job going.
Yeah. I remember when Ross Bannon came on, and a few other guys came on as well, kind of really hammering at home the importance of owning your own equipment. Yeah. And so why do you think people are obvious reason they may not be able to afford it at the start. But why do you think people are so reluctant to kind of buy their own gear? Do you think they affects their profit margins too much, or what do you think?
Well, I reckon you need to be investing a lot of that profit for the first few years back into your business. And the only way to do that is if you're buying that gear, that's getting chargeable and you're going to make more in the long run, but you're also going to collect more work over time. Because if you've got a digger, you can then get into more of that landscaping opportunity and you can keep it all in-house. And running those guys full contract, like you're getting margin off your own margin.
Yep.
And that's what's been working for us.
Right. That's pretty good, eh? That's a pretty good way of of doing it. Because, it's like really just planning for the long run rather than focusing just on the short term.
For sure.
Profitability.
And you can also do stuff for a little bit cheaper as well to get the job. Like you could, instead of charging your digger out by the hour, like a lot of operators do, you could do a day rate, which can be cheaper, which means you're more competitive to the next person when you're quoting the job.
Yeah. And then obviously you've got the benefit of depreciation on those things as well. And from an accounting point of view, it is always beneficial, right, to own your equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those hiring companies are creaming it.
They're doing it for a reason.
Yeah. Just popping up everywhere. And so what's your philosophy on, so we'll talk about how many guys, well, let's go into that now. Like, obviously you've got, you guys have worked on amazing projects. You got a variety of services, right? Like what do you guys, talk me through that. So you guys do new builds, some fit outs, what sort of the range?
Wellington being what it is, it's sort of hilly landscape and whatnot and full of earthquakes. So we've always specialised what we label ourselves as construction. So we'll do anything from a high-end new build renovation to earthquake strengthening to fit outs. And we believe if you can, if you're good enough to do that high end renovation, you can sort of cross everything. But like I said before, we still will do a small deck for a customer. We'd still do, a 100-metre long fence for someone. Like we wouldn't say no to that sort of stuff because that potentially leads to more work and more contacts. It's a good place to market, and that has led us to, in these tougher times, like now, still having work and still sort of having work come in because we haven't really turned anything down. Because in that 2008, 2009 sort of recession, I remember the work dried up so much, and I can remember like a job would come in and be like, go replace a door, and you'd be like, yes, I've got a job. So like ever since then, I've found it real hard to turn away work.
Yeah.
So anything that comes in, I'm getting a little bit better, but we do pick our stuff, but I will look at most jobs that come in client pending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's good in this market, because there's opportunities a lot more few and far between.
Yeah.
So that's really important. But then also smaller jobs, especially renovations. So how often have you had a small job turn into quite a big job? It happens a lot.
It happens so much.
Yeah.
And they'll pass you to their friends. It's like, people can spend all this money on marketing and whatnot, but that is probably your best form of marketing, is doing a great small job for someone that's chargeable, and then them telling their friends and their family, and then so-and-so will call you, and then you're just offering great service to everyone, and it's just word of mouth.
Yeah, and the renovation market's so good to do that. Like it's a lot of times it's harder in new build market because it's either like you're in a new development or something like that, and you're not gonna hand flyers out or anything like that in a new development. But the renovation market's so awesome like that because you can have, especially if it's like a street with a bunch of villas on there or something like that, in some of these older neighborhoods, you have your sign up front, you do like a nice like deck extension or doing something like that for a client, or even like a full-blown reno or something like that, an extension. The sign's up front, and then when you've completed the job, now you can literally do flyers up and down the street. Hey, we just did number 12, here's some photos, or come have a look through on
the
Saturday.
Transformation, you can see that transformation, and that's why even we will have on our website that we offer services like painting, right? Because we can manage the process. We can tell you what weatherboards are going to need to be replaced before the paint job goes ahead. We can do all the trims, the scribers, and tidy everything up to make sure that paint job is the icing on the cake and that looks mint.
Yeah.
So that's why we can offer that service, because we believe we better manage it a whole lot better than a painter could manage it.
Yeah, 100%. It's almost a lot of, business coaches would talk about value ladders, right? You got to get in the bottom, like if you can get them if you do a quick paint job for them, then the next step of the ladder could be maybe replacing a weatherboard, and then the next step up could be maybe, doing a bigger job, and eventually you'll get to doing the full reno. So
Exactly,
it's
yeah.
not the worst strategy
Yeah.
in this market particularly. All right, guys, I've got to say, Nic is really performing well on this episode. And speaking of exceptional performance, Aboto's patented process creates a unique vertical grain pattern that not only looks stunning, but gives their Vulcan timbers exceptional performance too. Yeah, just like Nic. You get better dimensional stability and better dimensional accuracy. Remember the phrase vertical grain, perfect for those gorgeous timber walls and joinery. And on that note, your secret phrase for this episode, you guessed it, vertical grain. Quickly go to aboto.co.nz/betterbuilder to enter this week's phrase and go in the draw to win a weekend stay for two at Aboto's Cadrona Cabin. Good luck, guys. Now let's get back to Nic. So tell me about your company. So how big is it? How many guys have you got working for you? What's your sort of crew mix, on-site, off-site, that sort of thing?
So we fluctuate. We typically sit around that sort of 27 to 32 mark on crew. We have a manager, a site manager, project manager, accounts, and then me and my old man. And then we have about 13 qualified at the moment, and around 12 apprentices and a labourer.
Okay.
And we have a digger operator as well.
Cool. And in terms of that sort of ratio, is there a reason why it's almost like a 1-to-1 qualified versus apprentice? What's the reasoning behind that?
We were working in two-man bands quite often. So if we're building a new house, we'd have a lead hand and an apprentice, and then we'd bring in another carpenter where need be. A lot of Wellington's quite bad access, and so you might need a couple more apprentices or labourers to feed the tradesmen at the time.
Right.
So that's they work in sort of pairs, which really works well for us.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And so, and then beyond that, you have like didn't you have like a building inspection business or something like that?
Yeah,
You built
so
off the side of that?
I've got a building inspection company that I started in 2010 when I kept getting asked to do builders reports.
Yeah.
And I'd shoot off site and do the odd builders report, and I was like, then I kept getting requests for them, and it sort of built up in itself, and started a company called Check Home Limited, and built that up, employed a full-timer and whatnot, and sort of had a solution-based report that we designed, and the agents and the feedback, it was really good. So it sort of built up over time, and then I brought in a business partner, and we me and him grew it across New Zealand and franchised it out. So
Cool.
that's in Christchurch, Queenstown, Wanganui, Taranaki, Northland. And
you guys do sort of like the website marketing and a little bit of lead generation for it?
Yeah, and the quality control, building the app, making sure there's systems in place so people aren't liable or they're not getting ending up in court and whatnot, and just making sure there's accuracy for the client and what we're, picking up in the report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So how much of if you're talking about the Wellington market, does any of your work or for BK feed from that or not really?
No, I sort of conflict it out a bit. I sort of don't mention that I do the building inspections because
could it be a conflict of interest?
It could be, but it could not be as well. But if you're picking up a wall and then quoting it from the other company, it doesn't sort of give a good taste for the real estate agent, or whatnot, or the owner of the house.
Just like this massive quote on the other end. You're like, this house is going to fall apart. We're going to have to do a lot here.
Hang on, I know a building company.
Vans out here. Yeah, so that could definitely
Flip over the card.
yeah. Flip the card, flip it over, and now onto phase 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that probably wouldn't work. So you've always had that sort of entrepreneurial side to you. It sounds like you're always sort of looking for opportunities and looking for different ways of kind of helping and adding value and increasing revenue. And so I guess that also shows you like the importance for builders. You know, we talked a little bit off air. There's a lot of builders that are on the tools that want to, you know, their bodies are starting to fall apart, or they're getting a bit older, or they're just sort of looking at the horizon and go, hey, maybe I don't want to be doing this forever. What are your thoughts around different opportunities that are out there? You know, yes, you can go and start your own construction company, get yourself off the tools, start charging the other guys out. Could be very high risk, low reward at times, as we know. Definitely. For a lot of builders. What other opportunities do you see out there for builders that want to get off the tools from your point of view?
Well, there's obviously what we just brought up, building inspections. That's quite a big one for a lot of older guys, but it's quite an old industry at the moment. Like most people are 55, 60 plus at the moment.
Right.
So there's not many younger people coming through, so it can be a good industry to get in. It is, you have to be very confident, you have to be very knowledgeable about what you're picking up. You need to know aspects of plumbing, electrical, drainage, roofing, all those sort of trades, so you've sort of got to be a bit of a weapon on all that stuff. But there's also site management roles that we employ when we have really, really big jobs. We sometimes outsource our project manager. We might contract a project manager in from one of our contractors, and we'll have them full-time on that job, or a site manager. So there's definitely avenues in that, and a lot of younger guys I see trying to get into that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, then we had project management. We had Bex the builder. She was on here like a few months ago. She went into the project management. She's like a project manager now for a big fit out company, international one. And so there definitely are options. So, you know, when you got your ticket as a builder and you have some experience, you know, the world really is your oyster. Definitely. In terms of different opportunities. There's also other property related opportunities, like you could do spec homes and sell them if you just have to make sure you do your homework. And, you know, flipping properties, or, there's definitely other ways that you could generate revenue, generate a profit as well, right? Yeah,
there's definitely. And sort of my goal with our building company, we sort of got, I'd say around that 40% mark at the moment is all our own work. So it's all self-generated. It's where we're building new homes for ourselves and then speculating them, and then, or we're developing, or we're flipping. And the reason we do that is because the easiest client's yourself. It's not, you know, you're not getting the after hours phone calls. You're not having to communicate with anyone. You know what you're doing.
And speed, right?
And speed. And like in this market, you're keeping your boys busy as well. It takes a while to get to that position where you can do that, but it can be very, like, you find most builders make the most money out of building their own houses and buying their own house, doing it up, and then selling it over 5 years. But you sort of got to know when to stop being a builder, because builders are so OCD and perfectionist that they can also lose in that sort of market as well.
Can work against you as well if you go too
far.
Very
much so. So that's why on those spec homes, you can't be on site every day. You're like, keep going.
I know, and I'd imagine they'd get over the top when it comes to the landscaping, and over the top. They'll just sort of do things too well and look too good, and they'll probably cut into all their margin. So what opportunities are there at the moment, like in the Wellington market? You know, you talk about doing things outside of building, you know, whether it's speculation or buying some sort of first home, buy type property and doing it up maybe and flipping it or something like that. What opportunities do you see in Wellington at the moment? Is it pretty hard, or?
Work is quite quiet in Wellington at the moment for a lot of guys. Like, we're getting a lot of phone calls with contractors trying to find work. One thing about Wellington is it's very earthquake prone, so you'll have a lot of earthquake strengthening on buildings and whatnot. So that market sort of never starts and stops. Like, it does start, but it's always going, so it's not sort of going up and down with the recession. So all these buildings are going to need to be earthquake strengthened. So there's a lot of construction opportunities there. Now's a particularly good time to be flipping houses, but it's all about the buy. When you're buying right, you've got to be buying a cheap property in a good location. And you got to be, you make your money on the purchase, not the sale.
Yeah, and it's almost like it's almost not about all the properties necessarily going down in value, which in some areas it is, but it's more about finding those little nuggets, right? With someone where it's a distressed sale or someone really needs to get rid of it, or you find that little nugget and you buy well, and then you're off.
And it's about time as well. So like you're doing a flip is about doing it as quick as possible. So if it takes 9 months, it's 9 months of interest and repayments you've got to make, which will be one of your biggest costs. So if you can do a quick turnover, and sometimes the best ones can be the ones where you just do the carpet, paint, plaster, and like you might tidy up the spouting or fix a few like cosmetic things, and then they're coming in, it's pulling them in, and it's in a great location. You get a person that works 9 to 5, they don't want to be doing work in the weekends. So those can be then you get them staged, fancy TV, appliances and whatnot, and you can do the best out of those ones. Sometimes doing the minimal can be the best.
Yeah. I think that's good advice. So in terms of your guys, you've got like upwards of 30 guys or even beyond that at times. What's your sort of philosophy on leadership, and like how do you sort of cultivate that good culture within your team and kind of get everyone pumped and I guess the big thing is eager to come to work?
So a few years ago we were going to start employing project managers, QSs and site managers and all that. We found out from our staff that like they wanted to run their own jobs. So we put a lot of the management back onto the lead hand on site, and then they seem to enjoy that site a lot better. Site runs better. They're not relying on us so much. And they have a bit more control. And then they will have their right-hand man will be like, their apprentice or their third year, and they'll be able to call us. We'll be popping in daily or every second day, giving them advice, organising the materials and whatnot. So, and the sub-trades. So that's really worked for us, and then we don't have to have like a consultant-heavy crew. We like to sort of be like a stepping stone for their careers as well. We make sure when they leave us and they go out on their own, the door's always open for them. So a lot of our contractors used to work for us on wages, and then they've eventually come back to us, and they've got like a apprentice. Some of them have a tradesman, and they can build a crew within our crew. And then they'll go off and do their own jobs and build that up, and that's all good. That's part of the game, and it's quite nice to have them coming back every now and then, doing a job for us and keeping in touch.
Cool. So you're very big on like upskilling and then letting them free if they need to go, and not sort of holding the.
Yeah, we want everyone to succeed, and that's how we see it. Like and we'll give them the opportunities and the jobs to do that.
Yeah,
because we've got so much variety. So that's why some of our apprentices that have come out have been, very successful in their own careers, because they're getting such a variety of work.
Yeah. And do you guys do a lot of social club stuff, like or any of that sort of stuff? Or not really?
We don't do enough. We do get busy at times, but we're trying to do a few more events each year.
Yeah. I think I think guys really value that. When you do those sort of extra little things, fun things. You know what I mean? What are some examples of how you guys have been able to, one example was the truck, the tipping truck and those sort of things. Do you have any other examples of how you guys have been able to kind of like squeeze a bit more profit out of your operation, or add a little bit of revenue here and there that wasn't there before?
So we're always full contract. We're never labour only. So when a client comes to us, one of our tricks is like doing a very, very detailed quote, but doing it way quicker than anyone else. Right. So getting our sub-trades going, boom, we need this quote by this date, get this in, and then we can exceed their expectation, and then we have a follow-up process with that client and whatnot. And then we'll tender it out to all our suppliers and whatnot and fish for the best deal. But we're always loyal. We won't, go to 3 or 4 window suppliers. We'll maybe go to 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And loyalty is the biggest thing with us on that. So, I guess on profitability, trying to think. Yeah, we've increased it on that digger, the tipping. There's different ways people price. People can price a tradesman and then an apprentice, or you can have a flat rate for all your builders with margin on top. At the moment, we're finding it's better having one flat rate for each builder, because you never know who's going to be on site. Like when people are quoting, they're quoting qualified tradesmen, then they'll do apprentice, but then you're expecting those 2 people to be free to go to their job, where if you do one flat rate with margin on top, that's working way better.
Right.
And when you own some of those items in your P&Gs, like your scaffolds, your portable, all your breakers, all that stuff, that's been owning all that plant has been it's made us quite successful, and owning all that stuff and profitability and whatnot.
Yeah. And has it improved your profitability not having such a consultant heavy team? So like having the guys on site running their own project, being accountable to it, rather than having like project managers running around? Or what are your thoughts?
Definitely. I do think it's also made the boys a bit happier as well. Like they're not having someone push them around a bit each day. Like we've got set targets on where we need to be on the job, but we're trying to sort of build it. I believe if we come in happy, the site will be a lot happier, and you can sort of mitigate some of that stress. Like we've been on some jobs, big jobs lately, where we're just getting pushed and pushed and pushed to complete them, and then the aura on the site is not that great. And, where the quality, if it's a happy site, the quality will be way better as well.
Yeah. I just think it's cool. I think it's that accountability for the guys on site, so they know, okay, something's coming up, going to run out of screws, we're going to, they accountable, and because they're accountable, they look ahead, and they not, because you can almost be like if you have a project manager over them, it could be like you kind of treat them like a child a little bit, and then they act like it in terms of like they don't take any accountability. They're just sort of like they're calm, they do the job, but they don't think, So I think it's a good way of doing it when they are able to take accountability for their own site.
Definitely, yeah.
And then just check in with you on asking for advice on things or whatever. I think that's kind of like a good way of doing it. So what makes BK Patterson Builders different in your market, do you think? Like what's your unique value proposition, if I had to use fancy phrases?
We have a good knowledge of the whole trade and the industry and sub trades, and we can often cost cut quite well for the client. And we know we're going to be around forever, so we don't want to get in, get out, and have a awkward fallout at the end. We want to be friends with our clients and have a beer with them at the end, and really work with our name and be there forever.
Yeah, so that's really important. I guess you guys have been around since you were like 2 or something,
yeah,
right?
So we want them to keep coming back to us, and that's sort of how we work.
Yeah, I think that's really good, eh? And how do you guys get most of your work? Obviously, you got, referral, there's that whole thing, right? The best form of marketing is doing a good job, as you kind of mentioned before. But beyond that, what sort of marketing do you guys do? How do you generate work out there? Do you, do you have a strategy in terms of like, do you go and have beers with architects or talk to interior designers? Like, how do you guys get a lot of your work beyond just the referral?
Socializing. A lot of our work came from early days socializing. We often engage the architect instead of the architect engaging us.
Right.
We've got a few architects that engage us, but we're often engaging the architect, so we're there right from the start, so we can help make sure that the architect is designing to budget.
Yeah.
And that's been really successful for us, and that's builds that word of mouth, which passes us on to the next person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And And so how do the clients, so if you reach out to the architect, obviously the client comes to you. How do you generally get those clients coming to you? Just as a 99% referral based?
Yeah, it's all referral based. It's mixing in the right circles, I guess, from a lot of our friends are in construction or in property. That's been very helpful, and just meeting people and not sort of putting too much pressure on people, like them knowing that you're a builder or a company owner, but not putting it in their face and going, use me, because those are the normal people that they don't like the pressure. They'll sort of come to you over time, or they'll get recommended from a friend. So that's been really helpful, and just keep looking after those clients, like not squeezing them for every cent, like leaving some money on the table for the next person, and making sure that like you'll get variations along the way, but you need to sort of pick and choose the ones that are acceptable for a variation.
Yeah, leave like a good taste in their mouth.
Yeah, leave a good taste in their mouth, and just communicate up front so there's no huge surprises at the end, and that's been real helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a big one, like leaving, a lot of people don't understand that part. It's just leaving a bit of money on the table for the next guy is so valuable, you know what I mean? Because then that also makes things go a bit faster. It makes sure everyone's making money. You kind of move on to the next thing. There's definitely a benefit in that, rather than squeezing every little thing.
And we've learnt from big mistakes. Like we've had some really big mistakes along the way, but they do make you a whole lot better. Like instead of dwelling on them, it's just good moving forward and picking up where you left off. Like right now where the market's a bit quieter, I actually really, really enjoy this market, because it's like you can look at every system you've got, you can make it the best there is, and you can be better than the next person. And when you're winning work in this market, you know that in a good market, it's going to be real good for you.
Yeah.
But now's like the perfect time to be like looking at your overheads, track every single cost, back cost all your jobs, and make sure everything's running on like the smell of an oily rag. So like during those good times, you can be there making good money.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I read like a stat the other day, can't remember exactly what the numbers were, but like a big chunk of the construction industry in New Zealand right now builders are only sort of 60% at capacity in terms of work. So this is a great time. You can't really complain you don't have enough time now, right? It's a great time to now all the back costing that you didn't do before, or all those little things that you sort of put on the back burner that you just weren't going to make time for. Now is the time to get that right. Definitely. Make sure your payment claim process is like as it should be.
Yeah.
And those sort of things, you can really tighten everything up. A big part of that is the overheads as well. How important is it for you guys to keep your overheads like low?
That's a massive thing. So we analyse that monthly, and we fuel going up and down. Like our hourly rate in the last 5 years has sort of stayed the same, and that's industry wide. I feel like we want our hourly rate to go up, but right now there's not as much work around as there was. So you sort of got to keep your profits getting reduced, because everything's going up inside your rates. So we're going to be on with fuel, suppliers, fixings, all that sort of stuff. We're reviewing absolutely everything down to software that we use, and everything.
Yeah, and in terms of your guys, all of them have utes, vans. None of them have any. How does that structure?
We run all our workers. Our foremen have vans. So in Wellington, you'll get those hurricane winds. So you have a shed jib on your ute. Probably end up in the South Island.
Yeah.
So they run vans. Our project manager run utes, and then we've got trucks, and then a flat deck ute and all that sort of stuff. So we've got a variety of vehicles and fleet, all Toyotas.
Right. So it's not like as soon as you start, you get a brand new Ranger or anything like that.
No. We've with our fleet's been really good. We've had like a lot of hiaces and whatnot, and they've been so cost effective to run with maintenance and whatnot, and they're way more practical than having a ute that you can't get anything in.
Yeah. It's just real common sense. Like a van is just always going to be so much more practical.
Amazing, yeah.
But it's not as cool, for a lot of people.
No.
Okay, and then how do you do your sales process? So Do you charge for a quote? You know, a client comes to you, it's obviously all fixed price, right? So it's going to be some time and effort involved internally. Do you just sort of suck up those costs and just try to get it back later through the build, or do you put your clients through a preliminary process? And you obviously mentioned they're just helping them design to budget. That's more time. How does that work?
So a lot of our jobs, probably 75% of our quoting would be free, 25% would be charged. And I do a lot of the quoting along with one of my project managers. We probably outsource about 1 in 5 quotes just to double check it to see if we're within. And that's worked quite well for us. And we use a variety of QSs. And we charge... we've got a questionnaire for our clients. So we audit our client when they come to us. So we don't tender for a job if it's got any more than 2 people. So like we only come up against one other. That's sort of one of our rules we've built up over years. If it's a tender process where they've got 3 or 4 people, we don't see the value in it because we know with the size of our company, we won't be the cheapest, and we don't want to be the cheapest to surprise them at the end. We're not one of the companies that, when we tender for a job, we will include what we know that could be a variation in the future because we can foresee it on the plans. Where we find a lot of at the moment in the market, a lot of people are quoting as per plan where they know how many variations are going to run through the job, and then at the end of the job there might be some dispute or some financial dispute. We don't want to be involved in that at the end, so we try to get it all up front. So if we're not winning a job, if we're way too expensive for the client at the start, we sort of work with them and tell them why we're a lot more than the other quote, and then they'll either go with us or not. But a lot of our work we are winning, and that's in that sort of process.
And are there other ways that you guys are able to demonstrate value beyond just the price, you know, that you want to obviously give them reasons to choose you beyond just the price? Are there any sort of little nuggets that you guys put in your proposals or anything like that to kind of just really demonstrate, just kind of hitting it home without giving too many secrets away?
Yeah, we've got like a little, we show previous projects, we've got a handbook as well, and we show the projects that we've delivered in timely manners and whatnot. So we know that it's going to be quite costly when the client moves out of their home and they have to rent another property. So I think timing is very important with rents and holding property at the moment. So that's sort of one thing we can do and show them the quality of what we've delivered in the past.
And sort of understanding, and it sounds to me like what you're saying as well, sort of understanding the big picture of the client. You're not just there to come swing a hammer, erect a structure. You're kind of just thinking a bit from the client's point of view.
Definitely, and also going, you know, I've walked into jobs where they're looking at spending $1 million on their house, and the house is going to be worth way less than that when they've finished it. So you're also talking to them about that sort of part and going, are you actually doing the right thing here? Like where they know that you're not just trying to win the job, get the job, and then they're broke at the end.
Yeah.
So like talking to them going, actually, like financially, what if you had to move to Auckland in 2 years' time? Is this house going to be worth what you've spent on it?
Yeah.
So
that's very important.
Analysing all that sort of stuff for them. It's going a bit beyond the builder, but it's been working for us.
Yeah. You mentioned before that you've learned a lot of lessons over the years, made a lot of mistakes, I assume, because that's sometimes how we learn our lessons, right? What's sort of the biggest hit you've taken in a project? You know, it's always painful to talk about, but other builders get a lot out of it. If you kind of talk a little bit through that as well, to make sure they're not the only ones. Talk to me about that.
So we've biggest hit would be 150K, and it was on quite a long project, and the company liquidated at the end. So that wasn't ideal, but those sort of tough times, you do learn from them. And that makes us pick our clients now. Like we're actually auditing our clients, like our client audits us. We're going, hey, can you afford this? Like, where is this money coming from? Because they're asking us for all the information on us, so we can. I think it's only fair to ask them the information. So, yeah, those have been very stressful, but we hope we've got systems in place and to avoid that going forward. But I still think it's going to happen. It's going to happen more often in the next few years as well.
Yeah.
So it's really about picking those clients and making sure you're doing they're a stable business if they're a business you're working for, or they can afford it.
Yeah. And what are some things that you've learned from that process? Like, how would you have done that differently now that you know what you know? What process?
I wouldn't start, I'd make sure everything is signed and the contract is fully finished. Sometimes you get pushed into starting something and you're still working through the contract because you've got guys that you need to move to the site or whatnot. I'd rather have those guys at home, paying them at home, or paying them to work at the yard than on a job and not getting that contract done in time. But we've always had contracts in place, but sometimes you can do everything right along the way and then something doesn't go your way or their way, and they might not have the money to finish the job, or they might delay that last payment and not have the money that they're saying they have.
Yeah. So some ways to kind of counter that, like there's some escrow, we talked about that before, there's some escrow companies out there where you can maybe put some money or put that final payment or something in an escrow account to kind of just cover everyone.
Definitely, I think that would help. It would definitely make some of those customers more appealing.
Yeah, because I know it's not the standard practice to put money in escrow accounts. I know more like in the States it's a lot more common. Here it's not. So I think that's probably going to be where things move towards.
Yep.
Obviously the payment claim process, we harp on about that the whole time. Obviously if someone goes into liquidation, you're not going to be that's not going to help you necessarily. But in terms of if they do have the money and they just don't want to pay you for whatever reason, the payment claim process is great in New Zealand for that. So there's different ways. And then obviously the big one is to make sure that you actually do your due diligence on the client and not just see the shiny money, paycheck.
And then unfortunately, sometimes you can do all the due diligence in the world and it just doesn't go your way at the end.
Yeah.
Excuse me. There's a retention law changing as well at the moment, because often builders are having to hold retentions on jobs when they're managing a job, and there's actually a new rule coming in about that, so that should be good.
Right, and that's bigger and commercial size, even probably more affected, right? Okay, no, that's pretty good. And so that would have been a pretty big hit, for you guys, which is always tough. And so, in terms of advice around risk management, cash flow for the younger guys or people looking to get off the tools, get into starting their own construction business, and that's the path they want to get into. What sort of advice do you have for them in terms of managing their risk and that sort of thing?
Well, I've got a few things. So when you employ a staff member, you should often you're not getting paid for that work for up to 3 months. So you need at least 4 to 6 months' wages in your bank account to pay that staff member. So every time you have a staff member, you should have that money in the bank to be able to pay them for that period. I've always had a rule where you get something freehold before you buy something else. So and that might with your plant and whatnot, or a work vehicle. So you're not running a full finance model where this is what works for us, but you're not running a full finance model. So in these times when it is hard and you have to we haven't got work for the next day or two, you don't have to close the doors.
So that's kind of like you buy one digger maybe on a ticket and then pay it off.
Yeah.
And only once it's paid off can you buy another.
Yeah, that's sort of what's worked for us.
Yeah.
And investing your profit back into yourself. So making sure that you're drawing a wage, but anything on top, depending on how big you want to grow to or what you want to buy, but we've always invested our profit back into the company, or at least half of it whilst taking dividends. And that has helped us along the way to build a buffer for these when you do get a little bit bigger and grow your guys.
Yeah, 100%. Have you ever been sued?
No.
Okay. There's been a few builders lately talking to me about getting sued. And what role has failure played in your business success, do you feel?
I get real hungry when on a job when I've made a mistake on one job, I really make sure that I'm not going to make that mistake on the next job. So, or I've missed something. Like there can be, you know, you could be doing bathroom renovations and then there hasn't been a detail on the plan and you've engaged the architect and you can't go back to them and go, hey, the architect's missed this, da-de-da-de-da. So when there are those risks running full contract. So I'll always make sure that it's on a spreadsheet or in our notes to never miss that item again and making sure that we make that profit.
Yeah. Got that asterisk, and the bold, highlighted, do not miss.
Underfloor heating.
There we go. There's like a little, you said it with a little bit of a quiver in your voice. Okay. Success leaves clues. You seem to be hanging around the right kind of people. From the conversations we had off air, you know, a lot of your friend circles are very successful people, you know, whether in development, property, construction. What makes a successful builder or building company operator out there versus a non-successful one, do you feel?
I think it's passion. Like you got to have passion for property and what you deliver. Like once you deliver quality, then you can sort of make money doing it, like, and having that sort of passion around it. And then your friend circles will become what you're passionate about. And that's really helped us like move forward and mix in the right circles. Like a lot of my friends are into property, so it gives us drive. You'll go to the pub, they'll tell you what they're doing, you'll tell them what you're doing, and then you'll share ideas, and that's been really helpful when it's social events and whatnot. And everyone's sort of piggybacking off each other and bringing everyone up. And there's enough room in the market for everyone. Like you see how many real estate agents there are. Like there's definitely enough room in the market for every builder. And like I don't see other builders as competition. I want our industry as a whole to move together. So I do like helping a lot of other builders succeed and build their businesses up and giving them tips along the way, because, you know, it's better us working collectively than against each other. Yeah,
100%. And I think a big part of that is sort of just elevating who you surround yourself with. It's like the age-old thing, right? And if you're constantly hanging around the right kind of people, you're talking about different ideas. They always say about ideas have sex, you know what I mean? Like they make love and then it creates a new thing that you didn't think about, you know, because you're kind of bouncing off each other ideas-wise. And so it's really important to elevate, because if you just sort of hang out with a bunch of guys and you're just complaining about X, Y, and Z, you know, about some, you know, building thing, versus hanging out with a bunch of other guys, maybe when you're talking about like, well, how can we take our skill that we've already developed and like do different other things, and someone can give you some ideas around maybe getting some funding that you didn't think about or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
not focusing on the negatives. And that's what I try to do in our business, is not bringing the negatives, because they can dwell on you, and I can dwell on them, but if I keep bringing them up, it's going to make, you know, bringing in that positivity is a whole lot better than the negatives.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because it just sort of takes a life of its own, eh?
Starts eating itself, yeah.
Yeah, and if you have all these people super comfortable complaining around you all the time, you got to ask yourself, why are they so comfortable?
Let's move on. How do we get to the next step and mitigate that?
100%. So what is success to you now? What does success mean to you, to Nic, today?
Having time, I reckon, like, and spending time with my, you know, kids and partner and family. That's the biggest thing now. Like you see often people working their whole lives and getting sick as soon as they retire. Like I think time along the way is very important, and I don't want to miss my kids growing up, or, you know, special times with kids and my partner.
Yeah. How many kids have you got?
2 girls, a 6 and a 2-year-old.
Oh, cool.
Girl dad.
Those are cool girl dad. They love dad's number one.
Yeah. Like to think so, but definitely not.
Yeah, I've got 3 girls.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool. You know, they do turn into daddy's girls like after a while, eh? So yeah, no, I love it. So how do you kind of like navigate the balance, you know, between family and business? You know, how do you? Because you're an entrepreneurial guy, so your mind would just be like, and even sometimes I'm around my children and I'm like doing math in my head, and what if I do that? You know, how do you sort of snap out of that?
Well, I haven't been good in the past. Trying to get better. So, I drop my kids off to school every day, which I love.
That's cool.
I'm there to pick them up if that's needed. I do get home a bit earlier and put my phone down and get it right out of the way.
The phone.
Yeah, the phone's bad,
Deadly.
real bad.
Yeah.
And I put that right away for a couple of hours and just spend some time with them because I don't want to miss these years, you know.
Yeah.
So and then I find it's quite hard to sit down and watch TV these days. So often I'll jump on the computer or something and work at night when my mind's going. I'm real good at night.
Yep.
Instead of early morning. So, you know, I'll get up at 6:30, sort out everything, and then do a few work calls, and then I can go real well at night, like right up until midnight, 1 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that as well. You get like a groove. The problem with me is I get my groove at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's the worst, eh? You're just like, mate, if someone could just leave me alone right now until like 7, 8 o'clock, I could get so much
Your
done.
mind is just going real good then.
Yeah, and then you got to stop. You got the wife going like, where are
I often keep
you?
a notepad next to me and I'm just writing notes.
I've had the phone under the table, and my wife would just be like, put the phone away, put the phone away. It's
I think we're all the same from what the from the other podcast, like all of us are.
I know, right? So it's just like, and then after 4 or 5, that's the time when the kids come into play and stuff like that. But yeah, it's so important to kind of make time to spend time with the kids, and like they do that, like because I've got mine ranges from like 6 months to all the way to 5. And you do, so I could kind of see where they're at and how the older ones sort of, they get less and less. They want to hang out with you less and less.
Yeah,
and
not looking forward to that.
No, so it's kind of like, I could see my 5-year-old. I mean, she's still right into me, but like I could just see it's less. It's not the same where the 2-year-old just want to come and cuddle me 24/7. Yeah. So it's once you can see that it gets less, and then I can imagine, once they sort of like teenagers and stuff, they're just like whatever. So you got to really enjoy. Yeah, you just got to really enjoy that time. You sound like a very positive guy, Nic. So that's good. But life sometimes just kind of smashes you right in the face. Things don't always go to plan, right? Have you ever sort of is there ever sort of been a struggle with depression or anxiety or any of those sort of things, even if it's come from external forces?
No sort of depression or anxiety, but there will be times that it is tough where I might be taking on too much or whatnot. So I do things like I've got a PT that I go to a few times a week. See a psychologist every now and then and talk through stuff. I think all that stuff's really good.
Yeah, that's really good, eh?
Yeah.
What do you say about when people say, PT, they must be expensive?
But it's your body, like, so even if I go there and he makes me stretch for an hour, which is often the case, like, you spend money on cars, you'll spend all this money on flash stuff, but then you won't spend money on your body. It's like, it's stupid. I think, like, I was saying that, like, everyone buys a cheap bed, and I was like, you spend more time in your bed than your car, but everyone buys an expensive car.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, eh? Because because even like, you get a lot of these like group fitness, like, maybe like an F45 or a CrossFit or like those sort of, or maybe even like jiu-jitsu or something like that. And they're always a bit more expensive, it might be like $60-$70 a week. And then someone would be like, mate, you could go to the gym for like $7 a week down at ABC Fitness. Like, why would you spend, $70 a week doing that? And it's I think we just don't put enough value on our body, right?
Hard out.
And until it's too late.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's like super important. So okay, so that helps you. Seeing a psychologist helps you. How did you find a psychologist? And did you was there something sort of big you had to work through, and that's what forced you to find one, or how did you go about that?
Yeah, probably work-life balance.
Right.
So like working through that, like I could just keep on working. Like I get quite addicted to it. And where I need to find like that's not gonna, we're all gonna be the same when we're dead. So it's not the most important thing in life. So that's been very helpful in working on everything around me.
So looking at your looking at your life so far, business and everything like that, I mean, you're still young, but if you look back at your life, is there sort of anything that you've learned that you would have sort of done differently in terms of how you approached running your business now, if you sort of look back?
I think early on, it would be real good to like learn from a lawyer about contracts. That would have been contractually smart in that first year of business would have been very helpful and would have mitigated a lot of these issues, because we can all build, and knowing that, like with pricing, knowing that the QSs are out there to double check, you could get them to double check your work or use them every now and then. Like back in the day, like I would have been quoting for 15 years. For the first 10 years, I never used a QS. Like I've only used one just in the last few years to double check my stuff. So definitely being a bit more contract smart and using a QS a little bit more often.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we kind of like too scared of the early days to kind of just reach out, ask for help, because you kind of just put your head in the sand a little bit and go, oh, everything will be all right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'll learn from this mistake.
Mistake.
But you can like, you can make up so much ground by not learning from those mistakes sometimes, and if by doing everything properly at the start.
Yeah. Yeah, and also not being afraid to pay money.
Exactly.
To fast track the learning.
Yeah.
And I think it's important sometimes, and it kind of may sound weird, but like in the early years sometimes it's important to spend money you don't have to help you fast track. Being open to spending money that you may not have or may not be comfortable spending, just to fast track and then you can make your mistakes sort of more in the you know, what do you call it, like in the mid range rather than right at the start. So it can kind of fast track you that start bit, which I think is really important. Who's been the most influential person in your life, do you think?
It would be some of my mates and my old man. And I mean, my partner for letting me do a lot of this, you know, like I wouldn't be where I was today without, you know, her looking after the house and, you know, putting her career on hold.
How important is that to like marry right?
Oh, very important. Yeah, very important. We're a special breed, us builders. We're ADHD and OCD, and we're all sort of the same. Like, I see the trend on a lot of the podcasts where we're all like trying to build and then trying to snowboard or trying to fish or hunt and whatnot. We're all trying to do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and having that supportive partner, or wife, or that just understands, it's kind of
for sure
super helpful. Yeah, I sometimes I talk to my wife about it. I'm like, how do you? I'm trying to figure out how she deals with me, and and I think her dad was also very like similar, like very erratic and like did a whole bunch of different stuff and high risk and just kind of went wild sometimes, and so she's very comfortable in that environment. So I'm like, you know, I'm so glad her dad was like that. Otherwise, you know, not a lot of women would be able to deal with me.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, anyway, little side note there. How sort of the growth of your company changed your perspective on life, and I guess even from the success side, like, you know, making a bit of coin and having some success, has that affected like any of your relationships or friendships, and how have you dealt with that?
No, I try to make sure that, you know, a lot of people come along the ride with us. So like, you know, whether it's our sub trades or whatnot, we're never negotiating their rates and whatnot. We're trying to pay people what they're worth. So making sure that everyone's happy along the way and not burning bridges. I don't want to be the guy that can't walk into the pub or can't walk into a social event and everyone's like, oh, it's that guy, he's burned everyone.
Yeah.
It's real important that, like I said at the start, you leave something on the table for everyone along the way, and then you take your piece at the end, and that's been sort of part of it along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's not that lonely at the top, if you bring people with you, as they say.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think that's a good sort of philosophy. We've literally come to, we're just on that, over that hour mark. Time goes pretty quick, when you're having fun.
Yeah, real quick.
So I've got some rapid fire questions for you, if you're happy with that.
Yeah.
And then, then I'll let you go. Next, thanks for coming on, man. Okay, so remind me, how big is your team?
30.
What's your crew mix?
Half the crew apprentices, half the crew qualified, and then sort of 5 off-site.
Cool. How many projects did you complete last year?
Oh, jeez. So we probably have about 7 marquee jobs, so like big jobs, and then we would, on the smaller jobs, probably around that 20 to 30 mark.
Cool. Turnover, under 1 mil, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 10, 10 mil plus.
7 to 10.
Cool. What's the lowest gross profit margin building companies should be aiming for?
20%.
Yeah. Free quote or paid quote?
Both.
QS or price yourself?
Both.
Project management software or spreadsheets?
Both.
It's all of them's going to be both.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to change the rules of this game. Fixed price contract or charge up?
Fixed price.
EV or petrol head?
Petrol head.
Would you rather have a beer with an architect, a subby, or council member?
Subby.
Jock or hippie?
Jock.
Wine or whiskey?
Wine.
Makita, DeWalt, or Milwaukee?
DeWalt.
These days,
My boys will hate that.
yeah.
They're all Makita.
These days, apprentices are A, soft, B, open-minded, C, hard workers.
Oh. Open-minded.
Let's call it open-minded.
Let's call it open-minded.
Are you too mean or too nice to your staff?
Probably too nice, grumpy at times. Yeah.
Extrovert or introvert?
Extrovert.
What's your most used emoji?
The crying laughter one.
Yeah, the sideways one or the
straight one?
Yeah, the straight one. What's one item you can't live without?
My car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's it, Nick.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. I think a lot of guys would have got some good nuggets out of this episode,
No, this
and I
has been
certainly
awesome.
did. Yeah. So no, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure we'll have you on it again in the future.
No, thanks for doing this. It's been awesome. I've loved listening to them all as well.
Cool.
Cheers.
Awesome, man. Thank you.